In this video, we will learn about some properties of a rhombus. A rhombus is a quadrilateral with all sides congruent. So the one that you see here, A, B, C, D, is an example of a rhombus. You can see the sides marked with the same labels indicating they are congruent. First question we want to ask is, how are those measures 1, 2, 3, and 4, the angles basically that the two diagonals form? What is the measure of those angles? And the answer is that we know, because of a theorem we learned before, those two form a right angle. So that means that all those four angles are 90-degree angles. So that's one of the main properties of a rhombus, and we can actually say that um, the diagonals will be perpendicular. That means form 90-degree angle if and only if the quadrilateral is a rhombus. Well, of course, that is knowing that it is a parallelogram, right? So if the parallelogram form the diagonals of the parallelogram form a 90-degree angle, that means that this gotta be a rhombus. So now it's not too hard to notice that if we consider only one diagonal, knowing the sides are all congruent, this diagonal divides the rhombus into two congruent triangles. And because of that, these angles 1, 2, 3, and 4 um, are actually going to be congruent. So 3 is going to be congruent to 4, and 1 is going to be congruent to 2, because they are corresponding parts of congruent triangles. We could say that this is like a diagonal divides opposite angles into congruent angles. So bisects those diagonals. So the diagonals of a rhombus bisect the angles at each vertex. So notice that the same thing we could have done with diagonal KM here. So now please see if you can answer the question here. What is WY? Knowing, so this is WY, knowing this is 3 and knowing that is 5. Okay, so please remember definition of rhombus, and pause the video and then check your answer after you have tried something. Okay, so then we check quickly example 2, in which we are going to try to use these properties to answer questions about a rhombus. So here they're asking us what's the measure of angle ADE, and we just went over this angle BAE and the angle EAD are congruent. So clearly I know that this angle over here, EAD, also needs to be 53. So I'm going to write down the measure of that angle right here. And we also know that the triangle AED is a right triangle because those diagonals intersect, forming a 90-degree angle. If we know this is 53, then the two acute angles in a right triangle will add up to 90 degrees. So that means that this here will have to be 90 minus 53, and we know that is 37. So that will be the answer that we expect to see right here, and that's what it is. So that's one way to use that information about diagonals being congruent. So not being congruent, but being perpendicular, I'm sorry. And here they are asking us what GH is. GH. And here, of course, you know that all sides are congruent. So if this is 3x plus 1, of course, that is also going to be 3x plus 1. And you can think of a right triangle with a, knowing that this 2x plus 3 equals 4x minus 7, because remember those two segments are congruent. So we can find out that x equals 5, and if we replace that x right here, then we're going to find out gh equals 16. So we are using those properties to actually answer questions. So please pause the video and see if you can answer the question, what is the measure of angle MNO? That angle MNO, MNO is that angle right there. So see if you can use all the information we have seen to answer that question. Pause the video, and after you do that, please check your answer. So don't see the answer before you try something, please.